Hello, everyone. My name is Ron Thomas, Managing Director of Strategy Focus Group, UAE, as well as USA. My topic today is navigating the new reality, the human factor. I want you to think of yourselves as being out of shape. Your organization is being out of shape. And you came to that realization during the COVID period. And that affected the way that you're doing business, that affected the way that you're working in the workplace, that affected technology, that affected your skills. So you're not fit. Are you fit for post-COVID? So my question is your organization fit for the future? We've gone through basically 3 phases over this period, from February until now. We've had to respond to COVID. We entered the phase of recovering from COVID once lockdowns or whatever governance restrictions were eased in some way. And now we're at what I call the imagining phase. So we've gone through the 3 R's of COVID. Reimagining. What does that mean? It means, if you think back to the Industrial Revolution and what you've read about, and transitioning possibly to a new work model, post-industrial transformation. Try and reimagine the workplace. Try and reimagine workplace policies and procedures. Try and reimagine what you've learned to this point as it relates to leadership. Because every function of the organization, in order to get fit, post-COVID, everything has to be reimagined. Aligning business strategy to people strategy, and making sure if we connect those dots that we're going to get business results. But so many times when we look at what's been happening, it's a huge people issue. It's a huge organizational issue. So our people are looking for us for solutions. Our organizations and investors are looking to us for solutions. But as leaders inside of the organization, how are we going to bring that about? Are we going to stay in a fixed mindset mode of anchoring it on the way that we did business before? Because remember, we have a clean slate. And if we have a clean slate, we can kind of draw that picture any way that we want. There's a growing demand for skills. Technology has come to the forefront. Myself, as well as other people in your organization, are online basically 9 hours a day. This is my second event. I was on an event earlier today, a workshop I was given, based out of Asia, based out of Singapore. And tonight, I'm working with a college group here in Dubai. So technology has changed everything. Am I fit for this exercise? I am now, because during COVID, I prepared for that aspect of change. So we talk about growing demand for skills. One of the key points that's been coming to the forefront is leadership skills. Do you have the leaders that you need for the future? You rode in this COVID with a set of leaders and a set of competencies, and you pretty much knew what you needed. But what did you learn from your leadership capabilities over the past few months? Did you realize, as I read in an article the other day, that leaders were missing in action? Or, as one CEO told me, I've seen so many leaders without portfolio. They don't have a big title, but they stepped up to the plate and were able to excel. The way that I will develop my leaders going forward is through the prism of COVID. Because change is a constant today. We've never been disrupted the way that we have been disrupted. And because we're working from home, the employee expectations have changed. So what does that mean for our organization? How do we get fit as it relates to employee expectations? They've been working from home, and they've shown, for the most part, that they can do your work from home. But if you were focused on that fixed mindset, because rules, policies, procedures were in place, that we didn't allow that, and we had all these strictures in place, that will have to be relooked at. Because if we're going to get through this together, your employees are going to be the ones that's going to drive that change. And that could be a hybrid model, transitioning to a hybrid model such that maybe I'm in 2 days a week, out 3 days a week. Maybe I'm on full work from home. Or, as some companies in the US are experimenting with, work from anywhere. What does work from anywhere mean? That opens up the talent scale across the globe. Do I really need to sit in Dubai to work in Dubai? Do I really need to sit in Singapore to work in Singapore? The vast majority of my work is centered around Singapore. So work from anywhere is kind of a step up from working from home. So you may say that, no, we would never do anything like that. Employee expectations have changed. And companies that are showing a growth mindset, which means they have that free slate, clean slate, are able to experiment more versus someone who's still grounded in the pre-COVID period. Pre-COVID period to the period we're in today and reimagining everything is diametrically opposed to each other. It's 180 degrees. The companies that will be successful are the companies that have realized that and they put everything on the drawing board. What happened from lockdown to now? Do you have any documentation? Have you data points? Have you surveyed your people? We would do the same thing that was related to our customers. So why would we not do this for our people? Some companies did pulse surveys throughout. They've got a reams of data. And that reams of data is going to allow them to try and construct experimental work model. What is that work model going to look like based on the feedback that I've received over that period? As an evolving business environment, even in interactions with our customers, what if your business model was built on face-to-face interaction? And now it's built on a virtual platform, the same as we're interacting today. All of these things, again, comes back to the clean slate. But there's probably has not been a better time to think about disruption. So let's walk through a few industries that have been going through transformation since even before COVID. The auto industry, the retail industry, from brick and mortar to e-commerce. Auto industry from showroom to e-commerce model. I can buy everything else online. Why couldn't I buy an auto online? Total disruption. Business model is going to be disrupted. Banking. When's the last time you've been inside of a bank? And during COVID period, if I'm in banking, I'm thinking about increasing that digital transformation, speeding it up. I may not have the 2 to 3 year to 5 year strategic plan that I had before, and I have to rethink that model. So as each one of these kind of industry transformations come about, it puts us back to that clean slate model. And then we have a workforce will possibly be needed to reskill or upskill. Upskill, I'm building on what I have, the framework I have now. Reskill, I'm giving you something new. Manufacturing, from manual labor to robotics labor. Is that going to be a hybrid? So we're in probably one of the most opportune times, if you look at it in that light, that you're getting a chance to rethink everything. And the resistance, for the most part, should be tamped down a little bit. because we're trying to understand how we're going to do business going forward and how we're going to manage workplace expectations going forward. So it's very fertile if we look at it in that light, and that's a growth mindset. But sometimes when we hear the word fixed and growth, we think of individuals. Well, I want you to think for a minute of fixed and growth for an organization. When I read about organizations experimenting with work from anywhere, with work from home, with hybrid models and all these things, I said, that's a growth mindset. That's a growth mindset organization, because that organization knows that it has to change, and it knows in order for it to change, they're going to have to experiment. And people realize, my workforce realize that we're experimenting with things, and we're getting their input as we design the new model. The other key piece of that is that when we make decisions around people, you have to get people involved and have them provide you with some possible solutions. You can't design and create in a vacuum anymore. Because one of the things that we've learned from this period is that the weaknesses of our organization, and going through this COVID, it's exposed a lot of weaknesses. And how are we going to restructure those weaknesses to get back on track as much as possible? So as we think through short-term pressures, as we think through long-term pressures, short-term will be more in line of restarting operations, getting people back to work, looking at managing the workforce for the short term as we figure out these new models, and long-term, develop your leaders. One of the key components that's coming out on research that I've read is that the leadership competencies of the C-suite, as well as throughout the organization, is going to have to be revisited. Because how do you manage with ambiguity? How do you manage with no clear structure? How do you manage and make decisions? Maybe I don't have the time to allow to continually hold meetings after meeting. I've got to make a decision. Every level within your organization is going to have to be reskilled in some way. Will have to be. And the other key component before we close out is I want you to think of, how do you build trust? If your organization has been buffeted, like we all have been, how do you build the trust so that when we come up with these policies, our people feel that we took their considerations in mind, as opposed to solutioning by conference room? We bring all the top thinkers in the organization into a room. They provide all of the solutions. But meanwhile, we didn't pulse the 1,000 people that are sitting outside, the 1,500 that are across the globe, to get their input. If you're a global organization, is that going to be a local approach designed at HQ, but with flexibilities from the local environment? So I say that to say, we couldn't have asked for a better time to be disrupted. I know there were some serious repercussions that came about, but I tend to look at it as once in a lifetime opportunity. I heard someone on a speech the other day said, never let a crisis go to waste. So the key point is take what you've learned, research what you've learned, build that plan into your business strategy, because that plan is going to involve people. The 2007-2008 calamity was brought back to health. Our organization were brought back to health through CFO and their teams. This is going to be a people strategy that's going to drive that. And in order for us to win, in order for all of our organization to win, we've got to think through this new workforce plan post-COVID and how we're going to drive that moving forward. And with that, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today on navigating the new reality and the human factor involved in making that a success. And I wish you all luck. Thank you so much. Thank you.